Hello everyone, and welcome to Soul GPS, where we learn to take our life back in our hands after narcissistic abuse. This is Ava coming to you today from La Spezia, a small port town in northern Italy, and I have some time before I hop on the ferry, and I wanted to shoot this video for you because it's a recurring theme that I've been seeing in many of my comments and the emails that you guys have been sending to me. So I wanted to address it, and the topic is why it is important to take time off from dating after you come out of one of those really toxic relationships. And I want to give you reasons that I'm going to divide into 4 different domains, and that is the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. So I'm going to give you reasons for all of those. So beginning with the physical, I think one of the things that were really illuminating to me in my research was that after I left my relationship and I was sort of left with that gaping hole and a bleeding wound from what had happened to me, I really wanted to fill it right up with something else, with something that would just take my mind off of the horror and rumination and thinking over and over and over again about what had happened to me. And I knew that that was the wrong thing to do. My instinct told me that, and also the research that I was doing, watching videos like these and so on. So I knew this was not a smart idea. I knew I needed to heal, but I didn't really exactly know what were the underlying physical reasons for that. And that came later when I started to study the brain and how the brain works. So the brain is changing all the time. It is a myth that the brain that we are born with is the brain we die with, or the brain we're stuck with. It is in a constant flux. It's like plastic. That's why there's a science or a term, that was developed in brain science called neuroplasticity. And that is because we constantly can grow new neurons and fill in the gaps left by traumatic events or brain damage from alcohol, from drugs, from tobacco, from negative thinking. That creates kind of holes in our brain. It's not physical holes. It doesn't look like, look at the brain and there are holes, but it's like there's not much neural activity. So when you look at a brain scan to watch where there is, this electric activity in it, there will be those gaps. It looks like a Swiss cheese. Somebody who's been through a lot of trauma and who has brain damage also due to environmental stressors and their thinking, so they have this proneness to thinking negatively. They're going to have a brain like that. Now, for people who have taken the time to really work on themselves and work on their brain, they can have a better brain, when they're in their 50s than they did when they had in their 30s. In fact, the doctor who has been really spearheading this side of the research, his name is Dr. Daniel Amen. I highly suggest you check him out. When he took his brain scan first time when he was 37, and then again when he was 57 or 60 something, I forgot, but there was a long gap between the 2 scans. His brain is better in his late 50s or 60s than it was in his late 30s. So I think that should really give you pause. So what these scientists have discovered is that it takes about 6 months for the brain to really noticeably change. It takes 66 days on average to change a habit. So this is why I think most survivors of narcissistic abuse say that, like there's these benchmarks, there are these milestones, and I think the first big milestone occurs at around 2 months. Of course, that's if there's no hoovering, if there's no returning in contact with the abuser. For people who cannot go no contact, which there's a lot of us who just can't do it, it comes from really setting strong boundaries and not giving the abuser any food to feed on. And by that I mean, don't talk about yourself. Even if things are going well, don't share that. If you're doing new things, don't let them know that. If you're planning traveling, don't tell them. Keep everything to a minimum. Do the gray rock technique, which basically means no emotion, even though inside you may be boiling, which you probably are because you are an empathic person who feels deeply, which is why you were targeted to, by the narcissist to be in a relationship with them, whether you were married or a boyfriend, girlfriend. So you're probably going through hell. And we all have to go through this. This is the journey of the hero, what I call the hero's journey. We have to go and slay those dragons. We have to go through hell. And as they say, if you're going through hell, keep going. So you need to have kind of like on the outside a mask of calm and stoicism. You know, you're not bothered. But then inside, just pay attention to all these feelings you're having. And then once you're safe and away from the narc, from the source of your aggravation, that's when you process those emotions. That's when you journal, when you cry, where you stomp your feet if you have to. I found that what was really helpful for me when I was going through narcissistic abuse at work. Now, this is a little bit different, because when I was going through my healing with my narc, I was in bed for at least 2 weeks. I was dead. I was just not there. But when I was dealing with it at work, I would go running in the evenings in the park, and sometimes I would put on music, and I'm a huge fan of actually metal music, so I would put on music and just growl, you know, and scream and do that. Some people say it's not advised when you go through the healing, because you just keep on sort of adding fuel to the fire. I found it relieving. But it's also kind of exhausting. So when I would come home, I would just drop dead, you know, and get a good night's sleep and then feel better the next morning. Anyway, this was what I did for work. So I found that physical activity was really helpful. One of the things that was really helpful for me when I was going through my narcissistic healing from the psychopath that I was with, that just almost completely destroyed me, nearly killed me, was I went on a trip. I went on a 1-week travel trip to Tunisia, and I don't even remember how I got there, honestly. I was like a zombie. But being in a new environment, among different culture, doing different things, seeing different things, was extremely helpful for me to kind of like disconnect. And it also helped to build new neural pathways, which is back to our physical domain of healing and taking time off. Was because my brain was exposed to new things. Now, you don't have to travel to Tunisia to have this experience. If you can get away and do something for yourself, I so advise you do it. If you have wanted to go travel, if you have wanted to take a class, if you have wanted to do this thing, even though you will be exhausted and you will not feel like it, do it anyway, because that's going to help you fill in the gaps of the brain damage that occurred during and right after the relationship. So 6 months is how long it takes. And I remember for myself that about 6 months after this, so let's see, this happened in October, November, December, January, February, March, April. Yeah, by April I was a new person. I can tell you that I was a new person. I had so much more energy, so many new ideas. My life trajectory was looking different. Sure, when I would slip still into the moments of nostalgia when I would think about all the things we were planning to do together and, you know, the life we were planning. But here's something I realized. The dream that I have conjured up, that my narc mirrored to me, was my dream. So this dream isn't going anywhere. I'm just not going to have this dream with this person, because this person obviously is not my friend. They're not my ally. And for me to have this beautiful life with someone that is going to really be there for me, that requires a completely different level of partnership. And I realized that I was not really ready for that kind of a partnership, because I myself needed to work on myself more. And so what this relationship showed me is the gaps in which I would fall for bullshit, right? And if we are prone to falling for things like that, even though it wasn't our fault, right? But there's a moment when we need to pause and we need to think about, okay, what do I want my life to look like next? Where do I want to go? And become that person. We can change. It is possible. It's been proven in the lab. So physical reasons for not being jumping into another relationship is because our brain is still operating in the old way. We don't want to repeat the same patterns again. So we need at least 6 months. I would say at least a year, honestly, but I'm taking at least a year. I think I'm going to take more time, actually. I'm enjoying this now so much. I'm enjoying being on my own. Oh my God, learning about myself, learning about what I love. And yeah, so anyways, it's been great. Step number 2, or domain number 2, is the emotional domain. So as you may already know, during this relationship and shortly after, there's a surge of chemicals that gets generated, right? Lots of stress, a lot of bonding chemicals. It's the whole mishmash and cocktail that creates this trauma bond with the person, where on one hand they're dangerous, on the other hand they are saviors. So all of that needs to come down. All of that needs to come to baseline levels. And these chemicals, these emotions that create different states inside of our bodies, is the link between the physical and the mental domain of ourselves. So it's the bridge. So our thoughts are going to create these feelings, right, by setting off surges of chemicals in our body, and that changes our state. So this is why, for instance, you can be walking around town, have a thought, and suddenly your cheery state turns into a depressed state. You don't know, like what the fuck happened, right? So that's why it's instant. Like a thought can trigger an avalanche of emotions. So you're going to be triggered a lot during the first 6 or so months after the post breakup. But if you learn to be mindful, which is really one of the best gifts of that, you're kind of forced to do this, right? Like if things were going well, you wouldn't have to do any of this work, right? But then you would never be able to rise above who you were before and have this tremendous opportunity to grow. But now, because you're kind of forced to, you've been pushed off the cliff, you have to learn to fly. And one of the best ways to learn to fly is to become really mindful. So you're observing yourself, you're observing your reactions, observing your emotions. You're becoming emotionally intelligent person, mindful person, right? So you're developing all sorts of faculties when you do that. It's really like, if you just do nothing else but mindfulness for the rest of your life, you're going to have an amazing experience. You're going to be in the top, I don't know, 5% of humanity, because that alone is going to just make you that much more self-realized, self-actualized, aware of what the hell this whole life thing is about. And you do that by becoming an observer. And that's why in science they value observation first and foremost. You become a scientist, you become an observer of life. That's where the science and spiritual domains really cross. Super powerful, high level skill to develop for yourself. Okay, so this is the emotional domain. You need to let these things calm down. You have to come down to the baseline. You need to find your baseline of serenity, of calm. You can't do that shortly after you leave the narcissist. You can't do that if you jump from one emotion to another. It's impossible, because you're just going to be going like from one place to another, and you'll never really find what your baseline is. A lot of you have asked, how do I know when I, after I have had the time off, after the relationship, that when I meet new people, that they're good people for me, that they're not going to betray me again? How do I know that this new group is going to be good? How do I know this new friend is okay? How do I know that this new person that I think could be my partner is okay? Well, this is the key to this. You do have to know your baseline. You need to know how you feel once all of the storms have passed and you have had enough time to really get to know yourself. When you know that calm, that inner serenity that you can create, and then you go out into the world, when that gets disturbed and you suddenly feel weird, that's the inner compass talking to you. Something tells you, this feels iffy, this person is manipulating me, or you have a weird feeling. That's your sign that maybe this person isn't the right person for me. Also, you do want to sometimes give people benefits of the doubt, because there is going to be some CPTSD residue from this experience, where you're going to just something might trigger you. The person might be super nice and great, but you're going to get triggered. So in that case, you need to learn to turn on your rational brain and think about that. Is it a deal breaker? Is it something that's really could be destructive, or is it a little slip up, right? I'm not talking about how we used to tune out all the red flags with the narcissist. I'm talking about something minor, such as, I don't know, they tell us, oh, your makeup looks smudged, but they do it in a nice way, as opposed to, oh, like, what do you do to yourself, right? Big difference. Or something about, honey, we need to, or dear friend, we need to hurry because we're going to be late. And it's not like, well, you're always fucking late and I always have to remind you this, you know what I mean? But you still may get triggered. So pay attention and analyze this thing, and give yourself and the new person or people you're going to be hanging out with some time to really discern. Are they good for you or bad for you? And you can always say no. You can always back out of a situation if they're assaulting you or with invitations and wanting to take you out and this and that, and suddenly you're in this big storm, and we can always say, no, I'm sorry, I need to take a week off from just social activities. I'm just super busy. I have to focus on some projects, whatever, right? So you can always do that. But you need to know your baseline, your emotional baseline. Right now, I'm getting close to that point. I'm not there fully yet, but I'm getting close to that. So when I have little ripples and hiccups on my journey, I pay attention. I'm like, what was that? Why did that person say this? Or why did they look at me this way? It's their problem. But are they projecting some kind of a narcissistic behavior? Are they trying to manipulate me? Right? I immediately jump into those this state of analyzing it without taking it personally, because I value the state of calm, of just confidence that is growing, the self-respect. This is so precious. I really want you to get to that point before you rush off to another relationship. All right, on the mental level, similarly, as you go through the healing process, you're going to get to know your likes, your dislikes, your thinking patterns, your beliefs. Oftentimes, we have been getting beliefs imposed from the outside, and we've taken them on because we wanted to please another person. How many times have you had, say, lunch with some people and they were arguing a point that you normally don't agree with, but you were nodding and smiling because you felt insecure, right? You don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to go out there and argue your point. You can if you want to, but I doubt that that's what you want to do, because it's just such an energy drain. But do you really know what you believe in? Do you really know? You may, or maybe you're not sure. Take some time. Read some books. If it's about religion or philosophy, maybe this is a good time for you to go within and ask yourself, what do I really believe in? What are my values? What am I willing to stand up for and fight for in this life? Right? So this is going to set up your mental architecture. And once it's solid and you go out into the world and you start meeting people, you'll be able to tell, these people's values are not where my values are at. So I'm going to keep them at a distance. Or, wow, this person's values are exactly like mine. And you discern that from observation, as opposed to you telling them and them telling you, yeah, me too, right? Like the narcissist did. And then you will feel much more safe and open to spending time with those people. But you can't really create that until you really know who you are. And if you feel like a total mess, I know I did, total mess, because it is like a hurricane went through your inner life, right? And outer life sometimes too. And you have no idea, you have no idea who you are and what you want. That's even more of a reason to take more time, because the real you, the essence, the light that you were born with, the seed that is you, is still in you. All you're doing now is you're removing the obstructions and creating a safe environment and watering your plant and giving it enough sunshine and what it needs through self-care practices in order for it to sprout. And it will happen naturally. So you don't have to do too much. You don't have to like trip yourself up and, run yourself over with a whip, do more, get to know yourself. Why do I not know who I am? And this, no, that's not the way to go. You want to go gently, and you want to give yourself ample time, which is, again, why at least 6 months or a year. I'm thinking more like 1.5 to 2 years from me. That's just me. Even though I'm in my late 30s, and society is saying like, you gotta get married and have kids. I'm like, fuck that. I tried that. That did not work. So if it is meant for me, I'll follow that destiny. If it's not meant for me, maybe I'll just travel for the rest of the world and write books and talk to wonderful people like yourselves. I don't know. My path is open, but I let go of all that pressure. So I'm not seeking a boyfriend desperately. I'm not seeking a partner. In fact, if I never end up having a partner, I think I'm going to be okay. So it's nice to come to that point, I think, in your life, to give yourself so much from yourself that you'll need, and therefore become a sovereign human being, which leads me to a spiritual reason why it is, I think, important to take the time, is to really find that pulse of the universal light. Let's say, I'm trying to keep it in neutral, agnostic terms, that is within you. you know, the God that dwells within you, and to know that you're never alone, to know that you're always part of this creation, you know, and also to not let anyone else come in and pollute that sacred bonding that you will be developing as a result of this crash, as a result of this experience. So I think it is really important. And also to know this is that as you spend more time with yourself, as you are going to get to know your baseline, your emotions, your predispositions, your proclivities, you know, towards different kinds of philosophies and belief systems and all that stuff, your desires of things you want to do, you know, the books you want to read. Now you have no one else telling you what you should do, right? You tell yourself. And if you are in the vicinity of the narcissist, let's say it's your mother, or it is your you know, your roommate, or I don't know, somebody that you can't quite get away from, know that you can always go to a library, you can always go to a bookstore, you can always do your self-expression. Do not let them get in your head. That's up to you. That's your this responsibility is on your shoulders to set those boundaries, and don't let those people treat you like a doormat. So the world is full of transitory states, people, impressions, right? Like as I'm sitting here and talking to you, the wind is blowing, the waves are moving over the sea, people are moving by. Nothing is the same. It's all changing all the time. We are changing all the time. I think that learning to be with yourself in a spiritual domain is going to allow you to connect with something that isn't transitory, because everything else is, right? With your essence. So therefore, when you're going to encounter people as they come around you who are going to either try to lay their trip on you again, or, you know, inundate you with their desires and their needs and their wants, by you being connected with that source deep within yourself, you're not going to be easily swayed towards doing things that you really don't want. And it's going to be that much harder for people to do that to you, and they'll see it, they'll recognize it. You begin to glow and shine. You'll have an inner light that comes from self-love and self-respect. People will respect you more. And you know what? As you're walking down the street, and maybe people are not looking at you, maybe you're feeling insecure about the way you look, or, you know, maybe you feel you don't feel young again, you know, enough to have a relationship, or whatever. I know, because these are all these thoughts we're all having all the time, right? It's very common. Know that the right person will see you, because they will see and find you, because they will see the light within you. That's why it's so much more worthwhile to work on that part of yourself, as opposed to trying to impress people with the way you look, or with the way you walk, or the way you talk. You know, it's no longer about that. Like, that game, it's over. And I think that that's another gift of this, having gone through this abuse, is that our value system really shifts. So if we do want to get into another partnership after this, you know, and after we have taken the time to really get to know ourselves, to really connect with that essence, I think that that person is going to be magnetized to us. That will be orchestrated by forces that are way bigger than ourselves, right? We won't have to go out there and desperately look for them with a flashlight. Our paths will cross, because it's destined to happen this way. So yeah, so I hope that this video helped you find some peace, you know, find some relief as you're going through this, because I want to acknowledge it again. It is hellish. It is really difficult. You have all of these emotions, and not only it's chaotic on the inside, but most likely on the outside. Sometimes the aftermath of having gone through one of these relationships is so severe, and there's just, you know, so many things to attend to, finances and custody and divorce and all that. But know this is transitory. It will pass, and you come out on the other side. And if you have taken the time to really get to know yourself, the new people that will show up in your life are going to be people that will match you with respect to your state. So they will not be there to disturb your peace. They will be there to enhance your life, as you will do for them, right? And There are people who will respect you and value you. And in the meantime, take this time, take this sacred time that you're being offered to really be with yourself and discover your spirit, discover yourself, resurrect yourself in many ways, because so many of us have been buried in our childhood, you know, by parents who did not accept us for who we were. They were trying to change us, you know, they didn't like the way we were. They were forcing us to act and behave in a different way that suited and fulfilled them. So there's still that child, there's still that glimmer of light that we need to learn to rescue, acknowledge, and grow, so then it can sprout and become the person that we were meant to become in the first place. So thank you so much for staying here with me and watching this video. I really hope it helped. If you do have questions for me that you'd like me to answer, there's an information about that below. My list of questions, free questions, is adding up, so it's going to take a while before I get to all of them. If you do need a faster response, personal response, I have information down below about how to do that through my email support. It takes about a couple of days to hear back from me, unless I am just like, you know, in transit, which that's why I give it 2 days, because it usually takes me no more than a day to get from one place to another. So yeah, so let me know if that's something you guys need. So I'm sending you a lot of love. I'm sending you a lot of encouragement, and I just want to say I'm really proud of you, that you have not given up, that you're fighting this fight. It's going to turn you into a warrior. It's going to turn you into a person that is full of self-respect, full of self-love, and the person that this world needs, frankly. So you'll become an inspiration, an example for others to follow. So again, big hugs to you from Italy, and I'll see you in another video. And remember to always let your inner compass guide you. Ciao, ciao.